Hello.
Your message made me laugh out loud. Mary Lou was so funny. And then I had to discovery calls with people and I was like, how can I describe the emotional processing work?
It's true. It's the truth. I mean, think how many more years people your age will have of good, healthy living. It's the truth.
Yeah, the emotional stuff is huge.
Yeah.
Love it.
It is. I had another revelation I will tell you about next time I talk to you. What that has to do with.
Send me a voice note. In the meantime,
Okay,
what'd you say?
I will do that.
Yeah. Also, welcome, Naomi. So nice to see you here.
Hi, sorry, it's a super loud time at my house, so I'm gonna have myself on mute.
Yeah, that's okay. These calls typically are a little blend of, I usually prepare something that you guys have either asked for or that I feel like talking about. And then we'll also share, if there's enough people on the call, we want to share any wins or any struggles, like any questions we have, just so that we can connect. And usually it's a pretty small group. It's usually anywhere between like 2 and 4 people. So it's really fun. And I think I know Erica really wants to join because she has like gallbladder stuff, but she just said that an international call at work just popped on. So I might give her like 1 more minute to just pop on before I dive into the nerdy science stuff for tonight. But Naomi is brand new, so I'm so glad to see you on the group call. Good for you, girl.
Is it snowy where you are?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay. Get this. So
That's cool.
it snowed. Yeah, it's cool. It snowed 9 inches last week. And we were like freaking out. Like, how are we going to get out of the driveway? It's like on a pretty steep hill. And the guy was like, oh yeah, like we'll be by at some point. It's really just a dusting. We're like, we better buckle up for this winter because I'm so what? 9 inches is a dusting? Becca was like, how do you even drive in that? She lives in Texas.
Wow.
So yeah. Anyway.
We're still getting 70-degree weather. Sorry.
Where are you again? You in Florida?
North Carolina.
North Carolina.
No, North Carolina. It's unusually warm here right now.
Yeah, it is apparently perfectly exactly the temperature it's supposed to be November 9th here. So great.
Are you a skier, Sophie?
I am. I started skiing when I was
Okay.
a kid. Yeah. But there's backcountry skiing up here. So
Do you do that?
I haven't done it yet, but we've met a few people that there used to be like a resort up here that so the tracks are kind of in there. So there's not nearly as much danger of like an avalanche or something like that. So we might check it out like with people who've done it like every year for the past 15 years or something like that. But other than that, I am going to be taking off a lot of Fridays and Mondays, at least half days, and driving over to Eldora and hitting the slopes. I'm getting like a weekday pass, so that I can just enjoy it without a million people. So, yeah.
Is Eldora the one close to Boulder?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think I've been there. Okay.
Yeah, because we're in Estes, so it's like 3 hours for us to get to like Breckenridge or Vail or any of that stuff. So, yeah, that's what we're gonna do. I forget that you know Colorado. All right. Well, I think what we'll do is we're gonna get started because I have quite a bit of info. This is like a little bit of a longer presentation about gallbladder health because once I started, I couldn't stop. It's like Pringles. So I'm gonna get started on that. And if anyone's watching the replay and this is just like kind of feeling random, just remember like you can always ask me questions or ask Becca questions in the Slack channel. Naomi, I know it's like this is your first one, so you're probably like, what? This is kind of, we haven't even had our first session yet. So if there's any questions, like just always feel free to ask. This is really for your education. And I always try to present things that give you information and then some support on like how you can make some changes that might help you. So I'm excited for this one. This one's for Mary Lou. I know the gallbladder is really important to you. All right. I'm gonna go ahead and share. How do I do that again? Boop-a-doop. Help me. Why can't I figure this out? Oh, it's over here, I think. There we go. Sorry, guys. It's been a long day. All right. The amazing gallbladder. I don't think I really need to read the disclaimer. Okay. Talk to your doctor before you do things. That's the disclaimer. All right. So today we're going to talk about what is the gallbladder and how does it work. We're going to talk about symptoms associated with poor gallbladder function and methods to support your gallbladder to function positively in the long term. I would say about 30% of my clients have their gallbladder removed or have parents who've had their gallbladder removed or something like that. So this is really important. And it is a huge part of our detoxification, and detox is a huge part of every part of our body. So I'm really excited to talk about it today. All right. So what is the gallbladder? Okay. So this is a really zoomed in picture, but this is kind of how the gallbladder is, that little green pouch. All right. And it's an organ that's part of the detoxification process. So the way that this works is our liver is going to secrete something called bile. It's going to pass through these hepatic ducts. All right. So the common, into the common hepatic duct. And then the common hepatic duct runs for about only 1.5 inches. It's really short before it's joined by the cystic duct coming from the gallbladder. So before bile continues its journey through the common bile duct into the intestinal tract, it must flow into the gallbladder, okay? And the gallbladder is a pear-shaped pouch, okay, that's protruding from the bile duct. So when we think about, oh, no big deal, I got my gallbladder taken out, this is actually a huge part of how we store and secrete our bile, and our bile combines with fiber, and that's how we detox. All right. So if you already are in a place, because I know there's some of you on here that are going to watch the recording that don't have a gallbladder, do not despair. There are plenty of things that I'm going to tell you that you can try to do to still support your bile flow, even if your gallbladder is missing. And if it's stagnant, then the suggestions will help as well. All right. So everything in the body has a place. So a normal gallbladder is going to hold about 2 fluid ounces of bile. And then the bile in the gallbladder, is not the same form as it was when it left the liver, because it goes through this whole process. So in the gallbladder, there is a really big active reabsorption of salt and water. That's why people talk about like bile salts. And the volume of bile is reduced to only 1/10 of its original quantity, which is kind of just amazing. I'm really only telling you this because I think the human body is fascinating. So bile salts are not absorbed, which means that their concentration is increased by about 10 times. However, mucus is added to the bile, which turns it into this thick mucus-like material. And that high concentration makes the bile powerful for digestive fluid. All right. It's even more powerful than hydrochloric acid, which is, of course, our stomach acid. It's a very powerful substance. So you can see that if we don't have enough of it, we might have problems, this sluggish bile, with detoxification and digestion, because it's such a huge part of that process. So whenever we talk about the gallbladder, there's always like this question about gallstones, and they are really prevalent, and we just want to talk about what they are. So most people believe that gallstones can be found only in the gallbladder. This is a common false assumption. Most gallstones are actually formed in the liver, and comparatively few occur in the gallbladder. That is from Andreas Moritz. Moritz? I don't know how to say it. This is his book, The Amazing Liver and Gallbladder Flush. And he is talking about how basically these two organs are super connected. And so if we support our liver, we're also in turn supporting our gallbladder. Fascinating. This is crazy. It might gross you out, but hopefully it just kind of fascinates you. But the liver will encapsulate our toxins, herbicides, pesticides, estrogens, right? So our liver is constantly trying to help us to detox every single day. So this is why you guys will hear me say over and over again, it's kind of ridiculous, this idea of like, the juice cleanses, right? Because yeah, sure, that's going to help for a short period of time, but how do we just kind of support our liver all the time? Because we're breathing in toxins, we're drinking things out of plastic, right? We are eating foods out that probably are sprayed with pesticides. And then we have all of our own internal hormones like estrogen that we need to detox. So the liver is very intelligent and it will encapsulate these toxins, whatever they are, insert toxin, heavy metal, whatever it is, and they'll store it in layers of cholesterol, right? So the body is going to sequester any toxins it can in order to keep them out of circulation. It will try to detox what it can, but if it can't detox it, it will sequester those toxins until it is safe to release them. They are slowly passed through the common bile duct and can wreak havoc in that liver and gallbladder area. Okay, so I just thought this little visual might help with the gallstones. So 20% of all stones are made up entirely of minerals, predominantly calcium salts and bile pigments. So if you are running, your HTMA and I'm telling you you have a calcium shell or your calcium is really elevated, it is possible that that's also linked to some gallstones. So a lot of people with calcium shells will also complain of things like gallstones or kidney stones and things like this. And it's because this calcium is very hard mineral. So it's a calcification, right? It's also why with a high calcium on your HTMA, we want to make sure that calcium is actually getting into the bone and not into the soft tissue and causing these calcifications. It's also why they can be really painful to pass, a gallstone. Cool. All right. So they are going to be primarily made of that cholesterol and calcium. Cholesterol is the most common constitution along with the calcium, but there can also be bile salts, water, mucus, as well as toxins, estrogens, bacteria, and I'm so sorry to say sometimes dead parasites, which, is gross, but it also really makes sense because when we think about these parasites and these bacteria, this whole part of our body is part of the digestive system. You can see just how close it is to the stomach, to the pancreas, to the small intestine, right? So it's all connected. They're all circulating back and forth. And so oftentimes we can see that if we do, for example, some gallbladder support, or we do a coffee enema, and all of this is like squeezed out, we will see things come out like dead parasites because they are getting stored in there. And again, your body is going to sequester that until it's safe to release them. Okay, 20% of the world's population is going to develop gallstones in their gallbladder at some stage in their lives. But hopefully, if we support our bodies preemptively, we can prevent this. Typically, stones within the gallbladder grow in size for about 8 years before there's noticeable symptoms. So this is, where all that good functional work comes in handy, right? When we're optimizing our body's systems, hopefully we never get to a place where, we have these gallstones growing for 8 years. All right. Symptoms that are associated with poor gallbladder function. There's the liver. So liver congestion, stagnation is really one of the most common health problems we see. It's interesting because in conventional medicine, we don't see a ton of reference to them until someone is already at a place where they might have like fatty liver. So liver enzymes, the levels in the blood become elevated only when there's advanced liver cell destruction, like hepatitis, liver inflammation, or like fatty liver. So because the liver is so incredible, oftentimes it will just continue to perform even after it's lost up to 60% of its original efficacy, efficiency. Incredible organ, the liver. So fatty liver, the liver is going to filter more than a quart of blood each minute. I'm going to say that again. The liver filters more than a quart of blood each minute. So most of the filtered waste products leave the liver via the bile stream. Gallstones obstructing the bile ducts lead to high levels of toxicity in the liver and ultimately can contribute to liver disease, right? So if we support our gallbladder, then we're supporting our liver. Only when there is an excessive amount of cholesterol-based stones, about 95% cholesterol, blocking the bile ducts of the liver, does an ultrasound reveal what is known as fatty liver. Wow. A fatty liver can gather up to 20,000 stones before it succumbs to suffocation and ceases to function. Holy smoke. I mean, can you imagine having even just like 3 stones, but like let alone 20,000? So we can literally survive with these thousands of stones in our body. They can be really microscopic, and then they can also be larger. I just want to say, please do not do a gallbladder flush if you know you have large stones. They can get stuck in the bile duct. We're going to talk about kind of best practices there. All right. So we're going to talk a couple more symptoms, and I'm going to give you some ideas on how to support this. So you can also get these blocked bile ducts. This one's really, I see this one all the time, you guys, and I feel like even you guys are going to be like, oh yeah, that sounds like me. So when we have blocked bile ducts and we can't get this bile out, we are not going to absorb our fats properly. So we see this on a GI map, right, with the steatocrit. And we see this on HTMAs with elevated calcium, right? Because if we can't digest our fat, and bile is one of the biggest ways we digest our fat, if we can't do that, we're going to have fat malabsorption and fat soluble vitamin deficiency. So this is where we see like the chronically low vitamin D, or someone who's constantly getting sick, has low immune system function because they don't have enough vitamin A, or they have chronic skin issues, you know, dermatitis, acne, whatever is going on there because they have low vitamin E status, or they have clotting issues, or again, elevated calcium shell on an HTMA because of low vitamin K. So we need bile to help us digest fat so we can absorb it properly so that then we don't have all these other symptoms. So this one is one I see a lot, actually. I see a lot of this blend of things. Okay, so to maintain a strong and healthy digestive system and feed body cells the right amount of nutrients, the liver has to produce 1 to 1.5 quarts of bile per day. That's a lot of bile. Anything less than that is bound to cause problems with digestion of food, elimination of waste, and the body's constant effort to detoxify the blood. Many people produce just about a cupful or less bile. So that's not even close to what we need. And we are going to go through kind of a list of symptoms. And if you see a lot, then maybe some of the things we can do to support the bile is the best next step for you. All right, a couple more slides. So pancreatic insufficiency. So gallstones in the liver or gallbladder cut down on bile secretion from the normal amount of 1 quart a day to that little 1 cup, right? This can disrupt the digestive process. So fats and fat-containing foods can be maldigested, like I mentioned. And then because of that, something called the pH in our body, right? You probably remember that from science class. Our pH is too low, which is going to basically shut down the ability of your pancreatic enzymes to digest protein. So it's now you're talking about sluggish bile, poor fat digestion, poor protein digestion, right? Because the body's getting all these cues from different parts of the digestive system. So then we end up with like partially digested food in our stool, or we see these enzymes in our GI maps that are off, or we see like nutrient deficiencies on a blood chemistry or a GI map, or sorry, an HTMA, because we're not absorbing our food. Okay. So liver and gallbladder, huge role in the production and secretion of pancreatic enzymes, which help us break down food. And that's how we are going to absorb our nutrients, because it's not just, you could eat the best food in the world, but if you're not absorbing it, well, then that's not very good. So we want to help you absorb it. Okay, this is a lot. And certainly a lot of these symptoms can be related to other things, but I do think it's kind of interesting snapshot of symptoms that are associated with like liver and gallbladder stagnation or issues. I feel like I'll pull out the ones I see the most. So I see a lot of people who have like poor appetite, right? Because if you're not stimulating those digestive enzymes and things like that, why would you want to eat anything? Because your food's going to feel like it's just stuck there. So you're going to have a low appetite. Diarrhea would happen because you're not absorbing your fat well. So a lot of people who have their gallbladder removed cannot absorb their fats well, and so it will run right through them. A lot of people with gallbladder stuff will have a pain on the right side, like underneath their rib, or even up in their back. So that's a sign on the back. What other ones do I see a lot? Yeah, the pain at the top of the shoulder blade. I see that one a lot. A lot of clients will kind of complain of chronic fatigue because again, they're not absorbing their nutrients, problems sleeping, insomnia, food cravings, gas will be a big one that I see a lot. Nausea is a huge one. Yeah, weight can also be like, if you're holding on to weight, it can actually be related to the gallbladder because again, you need to be digesting your foods to balance your blood sugar, for example, and keep things moving. I would say those are like the most common. And then clients will also like tell me that they see the clay colored stool or they'll have kind of floating stool. And that's also often a clue of liver gallbladder stuff going on. All right. So take a screenshot of that if you need to. Really interesting amount of symptoms that can come from liver gallbladder issues. Alrighty. So cool. Now we learned how to identify it, how important it is, and what can we do about it? Okay. Here's the deal. This book, if you want to do a liver gallbladder flush, I would say please read this entire book. Like, it's very controversial to do one because it is, you don't know what's in there. You don't know how big those bile compilations, those gallstones could be. So you could get them stuck and then you'd have to go to the hospital or something like that. I mean, that's kind of a rare case, but if you want to do your own liver gallbladder flush, then that's a great book to learn how to do it. Essentially, what you would do is you're going to cut out all the high fat foods for about a week. And then you're going to eat high fat foods and it's going to push that little gallbladder to push out what's in it, right? Kind of in a more of a rush as opposed to like what it's used to every day, kind of processing the fat. So it is about a 7-day process and it has helped a ton of people because these gallstones and things that are stuck in the gallbladder and liver tract can really make us feel ill. But I would just say, like, if you want to do that, then read the book and then you and I can have a conversation about it because I want to make sure you feel really safe and in charge of your own flush. Okay. So if that feels a little too extreme for you, there are a lot of other things we can do, which is great. So we can eat biohealthy foods. So those include beets, radishes, artichoke, asparagus, celery, lime, lemon, grapefruit, cucumbers, carrots. You can juice them up if you want to. You can have it in a big salad. I would say if you're going to juice things, just if you're using a lot of carrot or beet, just know that that's higher in sugar. There's no fiber to balance out the sugar. So you might want to do a smaller amount of those or make sure you have your juice like with food or something like that. But you could also just put all these things on a big salad. There's also herbs like ginger and then certain leafy greens like arugula that are bitter, and bitter things help stimulate the gallbladder. So endive, cilantro, turmeric, dandelion, cumin, fennel, mint, milk thistle, leeks, all that stuff. So you can, one of them, like you could do like ginger tea, right? Like that's pretty easy. Or like have arugula on your salad, or maybe you make like a turmeric, ginger latte, right? Maybe you supplement with milk thistle. There's a lot of different ways to kind of incorporate these things. It's just about how does it feel best for you? All right. So fermented foods also help with digestive juice secretion. So sauerkraut, kimchi, pickles, pickled ginger, things like that. Now, if you are somebody who, when you eat those fermented foods, you get bloated, it's probably you have too much bacteria in your gut, and we'll work on that when we get your GI maps back. So if that one doesn't work for you, that's totally fine. There's so many other options. Okay, so fiber is going to grab that stagnant old bile and the bad estrogens, and it's going to kick them out of the body. So you can do chia, flax, hemp, pumpkin seeds. These are all great ways to get soluble fiber. And then insoluble fiber is going to come from vegetables and fruits. So, maybe just take a look if you have these things in your food. And if you don't, then add one, right? Like you don't need to do every single thing on this list. Just pick one thing that works for you. See that there is a message, but why can't I see it? Ooh. I don't know why I can't see the message. I'm going to keep going and then I'll answer questions in comments. Okay. So chlorophyll rich foods. So any dark leafy green vegetables are chlorophyll rich. All right. That's why they chlorophyll is getting its color from the greens. If you are sensitive to these, then don't do them. Like I don't really do well with wheatgrass. They say it's gluten-free, but I don't know. It just doesn't work for me. But you can also do like chlorella and spirulina are options as well. All right. So we can support our stomach acid, and then that's going to stimulate the secretion of bile into the small intestine. So the most direct way to stimulate stomach acid is by taking stomach acid called betaine-HCl in supplement form. That's the most direct way. But if you do have H. pylori or Helicobacter pylori on your GI maps, then taking HCl is not recommended because it can make it worse. So instead, you can try, wait for it, ginger. Ginger's on there again. You guys can hydrate outside of mealtime and drink very little while eating meat and hold off on water after a meal. If you've been with me for any amount of time, you know that that's because when we drink a lot of liquid during and right before, right after our meals, we really dilute our stomach acid, which makes it very hard for us to digest heavier things like meat. Okay. You can use lemon and apple cider vinegar. So a lot of people love this. We just do you blend up turmeric, cinnamon, lemon, apple cider vinegar. You just do it like an 8 ounce in water, and you just do it as there's about 8 ounces of it. And you can just drink a little 1 ounce shot per day to kind of start your digestive juices either before a meal or at the beginning of the day. That's one of the best ways to do it. I think a lot of people like that option. And if you didn't catch all that, just let me know. I'll send you the little recipe. You can eat protein at the beginning of the meal. And again, fermented vegetables, and eat your largest meal when you're relaxed so that you really release those digestive enzymes to help you process the food. Okay. All right. So there's a couple of interesting lifestyle-based ways to support the gallbladder that are based more in traditional Chinese medicine. So in Chinese medicine, the most active time period for your gallbladder healing is between 11 and 1 at night. And the liver is right after that from 1 to 3. So ideally, we want to be sound asleep by 11 in order to maximize the liver and gallbladder healing and repair. So in Chinese medicine, every organ has its own 2-hour time frame throughout the day where it is the most active time for that healing. So in this case, being asleep before 11 has more than just the benefits of giving you good rest. I know that Mary Lou is going to relate to this one. I think she will. So according to traditional Chinese medicine, the liver and gallbladder are areas that hold anger. So people who are angry or have some unresolved anger and frustration have a greater propensity for liver and gallbladder issues. Fascinating. According to TCM. So when we release that, like we're going to do next week for you, my dear, I'll be really interested to see if your sleep issues continue. Okay, a couple more ideas. Intermittent fasting. So this is really something you guys, I think there's a time and a place to try fasting because it can be also kind of dangerous if you just kind of jump into it without any prep. But fasting from food can be extremely beneficial for the liver and gallbladder. You'll notice that this is not about calorie counting or deprivation, right? It's really about how the digestive system works. It takes about 90 minutes for our digestion to fully complete every single time we eat. So it makes sense, right? If you give yourself a little break, then you're just not putting as much strain on your body, on your liver and your gallbladder. So you can do just 12 hours, right? 7 p.m., maybe that's the end of your eating window, and then you don't start eating again till 7 a.m. Or maybe you want to do a little bit more, and so you do 7 and then you start eating at 10 a.m. or something like that. So you can work your way up to that. And in the meantime, you can drink herbal teas like ginger and dandelion root and lemon detox tea. You can even have green juices if you want to during the fasting period. And again, just listen to your own body. If you start getting dizzy and hangry, then maybe fasting, you're just not there yet. And that's totally okay. I've been doing this parasite cleanse this week, and I've been drinking a lot of dandelion root tea, and green juices, which I don't normally do, but I'm just in this place of like kind of a releasing, and it's been really helpful. Now, if you do have a sluggish gallbladder or your gallbladder has been removed, you might find it more challenging to eat larger meals at first. So that's because your body's not really able to emulsify the fats, and it can really lead to this digestive stress. So you might want to try consuming 3 to 4 smaller meals during your eating period of the day. Shakes and smoothies are easier as well. And just to be clear, I don't necessarily recommend this type of eating all the time. A lot of people do better with just keeping it to like 2 or 3 meals. You have to kind of experiment with this and see where it is. But if you are someone who's just like, man, I always, I don't feel well when I eat like a larger meal, this could be why. And while we work on your digestive system, you might want to cut back and do smaller meals throughout the day. Okay, there are a couple of supplements that are super important, especially if you are missing your gallbladder altogether. Mary Belante's not on this call today, but she, I know for a fact that Advanced TUDCA has been like one of the most valuable supplements like she's ever had, because if you do have a missing gallbladder, you're not going to be able to emulsify those fats and detox properly, right? It's just going to be a lot harder. And if things are sluggish, same deal. So TUDCA is from Cellcore Biosciences. It supports bile production. It's really essential when it comes to promoting the body's natural ability to detox. It's water-soluble bile acid. So it's just helping you to stimulate the release of bile into the digestive tract so that you can digest food properly and drain food properly. If you're doing any sort of deep detox with me, like parasite cleansing, I've probably already recommended TUDCA to you. Ox bile was what we used before we had TUDCA. It's still completely fine, but it is from an ox, and, it's not as clean of a source. So some people just don't like that option, but you can do ox bile with any fatty meal or even like a fatty supplement, like if you're taking cod liver oil, for example. Okay, so those 2 options are there. Magnesium helps with contracting muscles, right? That's why we take magnesium if we have period cramps. So a magnesium deficiency, which would be shown on your hair tissue mineral analysis, is really common. And if you can add some, it can reduce that contracting activity that could cause some of the gallbladder pain. And then finally, phospholipids. So lecithin is a major source of phospholipids, which are one of the key emulsifying agents in bile. So people who have all these symptoms and have all these problems with gallbladders, their bile is sluggish, right? And so we want the phospholipids are going to break down that fat, thin out that bile, and help it be easier for you to digest food, and also keep cholesterol moving through the bloodstream. So people who have liver and gallbladder issues often also see this elevation in cholesterol, and then it links to Hashimoto's and hypothyroidism, which at least 50% of you in this program have. So this is something to really keep an eye out. If you see that cholesterol like kind of creeping up, it could be related to your liver and your gallbladder. So there is a supplement called phosphatidylcholine that is great. It helps with gallstone, preventing gallstones in mice. Now, if you don't want to take a supplement, raw eggs, so cook your eggs, don't eat them raw. I'm just saying, like, eggs are a natural source of lecithin. But a lot of people who have like gallbladder issues, like I said, have Hashimoto's, and then they have a egg sensitivity. So you might want to try something like sunflower lecithin or the product Optimal PC. So again, if any of this sounds interesting to you, or you're like, I'm really identifying with this lecture, I want to know if I should take this, just shoot me a message on Slack or at the end of this call, and we can just chat through what makes the most sense for you. Okay. That is what I got for you guys today. So I'm going to stop my screen. Okay. What questions do you guys have? Oh, I see the chat now. How do I feel about psyllium husk? Okay, good question. I feel like I like products that work 90% of the time for my clients. And I feel like psyllium husk is so hit or miss. It's great, like for lowering cholesterol and fiber and all that stuff. It's great for that, but just not everybody can do it. I think, Mary Lou, you recently tried it and it didn't really work for you. Was that right?
Yeah, it just made all bloated usually, but I, probably should try a smaller amount. I just haven't gotten back to it again to try it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess, Naomi, I'm just always like, what can I suggest that's going to hopefully work for most people so they're not spending money on things that they can't use. That said, it is really powerful for this purpose as well. So it's a great option, and it's food-based, which is also great for people who would rather do that over like a synthetic vitamin, for sure. Good question. Smarty pants. I love it. What other questions do you have, Mary Lou? Do you have any questions?
I have a whole list of questions.
Let's go.
How do you know how much bile you're producing? Like you said, most people are like only a cup. How do you know that?
Yeah.
And at the same time, how do you know how full your gallbladder is of things?
Of gallstones?
Yeah.
Well, the only way to know if you had gallstones really would be to go through the medical system and see them, right? They would have to be like
an ultrasound, something
yeah,
like that.
you'd have to be able to see them. Unless you did voluntarily do a gallbladder flush and you see them coming out. So I think in this case, it's best to just go off of symptoms. And actually, that's kind of how I like to roll with this one, because there isn't, well, I'll say this, if your steatocrit's messed up on your GI maps, then you're probably having like fat malabsorption issues in the gallbladder. So that is one like marker that you can test in some of the work that we do. Other than that, it would probably be going through, a medical doctor, which I know I think you said your mom had gone through all of that as well. So I'm like, let's be supportive before we do that. Oh my gosh, it's a little kitty.
And bitters, is just taking bitters instead of like the tea and stuff, is that similar to what you're saying? Okay.
Yeah, that's a great way to stimulate bile. Those little droplets. I know you don't like the taste of them though.
It doesn't matter. I do it anyway. But you know what I found? Like I did it this morning. Like I was asking you, should you do it at every meal?
Mm-hmm.
I was only doing it at dinner. And this morning I did it, but I didn't eat very much food and it upset my stomach, I think. Almost like I had too much stomach acid then.
Probably. Yeah.
Which was interesting to me.
Yeah. I tend to, with those, I just try to, I do the amount based off how much I'm eating,
Okay. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then just a funny thing, again, another anecdote about my mom. She used to take butter and she used to blend with a blender these little things into the butter. So every time you would go to there and you would eat and she would put the butter out, we'd all be using this, what is that crap mom is putting in the butter? She would always make, and it was lecithin. She would blend it into her butter. So and after what you just said now, I'm thinking she did it to help digest just that in the butter, which is hilarious to me.
They blended it in. Old school. Wow. That's
so what the hell is mom putting in the food today? We would never know. Like, what are these little things in the butter? I have no idea. But now I do. That's so interesting to me now.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. Yeah, that's exactly what she was doing it for.
Yeah. That's really fun.
Yeah. I like that product, the optimal PC, especially if you've got like the sluggish gallbladder liver stuff, but also, if we find like mold, I like that one a lot. That one or Tudka for people. Those two seem to work really well for people with the bile stuff.
So can you assume that anybody that has like the slow digestion, some of it is due to the bile stuff? Or
I would say it's kind of like since it all works together, the theory would be yes, because It's not usually just one thing. Like even
Right.
when we run like the brain chemistry test and we see someone has low serotonin, well, they also always usually have really jacked up dopamine, right? It's like our brain chemistry works the same way. Our digestion is all connected. So, I would, if someone was slow digestion, like constipation, stimulation would be where I was thinking. So bitters, phosphatidylcholine, TUDCA, something like that. Or even the, just the bitter greens, or, stimulating stomach acid with like lemon and apple cider vinegar. All those things are going to help the whole system, because they're getting their cues from each other. It's why like people who have low stomach acid also end up having like poor issues with protein digestion downstream. Yes.
So yeah, I know I'm just getting started, but how do you, I don't know, a lot of those symptoms, like, sure, I've got some of the symptoms. I feel like no one's ever told me I have liver or gallbladder or bile issues. Is that something we will find out with the labs I'm going to do, or is it just something I should be supporting regardless? Because I really don't know if I have issues or not.
Yeah, it's a really good question. We all have a lot of toxins that we're trying to, detox through our liver. And because most of us in this program are dealing with like Hashimoto's and that stuff, we do know the liver digestive system is usually really connected. So typically what I'll have someone do is, when we get your GI maps back, we'll probably add in some liver gallbladder support during the detoxification process alone. And then you'll start to notice that if you don't have that in there, potentially things are really slow. Like I was actually just talking to Erica about this. Like she didn't have any of that in. And so everything kind of slowed down with her digestion. That was like her clue, for example. But I don't think there's anything wrong with having, at the very least, like drink some dandelion tea, drink some ginger tea. Like these things, they're kind of like basic, but they can really support in the long term. And I think, when we see your GI maps, we'll look at your pancreatic enzyme and your steatocrit, so your elastase and your steatocrit, and that will give us a lot of clue too into that process and that function. Yeah, that's a good question. I would also say, fat is really important for hormones. So when I see like a Dutch that has like all low tanked out hormones, and then there's also like maybe some steatocrit issues or something like that on a GI map, I'm thinking, either this person's just not eating fat, which is pretty hard to do because they're just going to be really hungry and miserable, or they're not digesting their fat very well. And actually Sarah E, who's about to graduate, she had like some of the, we were talking about this on a call recently. She had like really poor fat malabsorption, but her hormones were all messed up. And so we actually just supported her fat digestion and her bile flow. And like every symptom just started to like completely reverse. Like her periods got better, her brain fog went away, all that stuff. So just from that one thing. So we'll see what happens for you.
And what was she doing? I mean, what did you do specifically for gallbladder?
For her, she needed a digestive enzyme that also had fat lipase in it, but she also did TUDCA. I think Becca put her on TUDCA because I think she also put her on, it was really like her numbers were really off. So I think she also put her on a third supplement as well. So those two.
So you can't ever take the betaine HCl if you have H. pylori. I mean, do you always have to make sure you don't have it?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's from how Becca and I were taught, it will just make it worse. It can just make it worse. It can make ulcers happen. So I just can't legally or ethically suggest that, but it is frustrating. To have H. pylori come up over and over again and not be able to clear it. This is why that in that case, an antibiotic might be most helpful for something like that. All right, Naomi. Thanks for coming. It's good to see your face. Can't wait for our kickoff call. Yeah, it is frustrating with the H. pylori, and I don't know. We can test it. We can find out, see if it gets worse. But the overarching idea is that it could make the H. pylori proliferate. and be worse.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't do it. I mean, I'm taking that one digestive enzyme with my meals. Plus, I just started the bitter, so I'm gonna give that. But I really do find that I do better with smaller meals, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Well, and I think we
Yeah.
can also experiment a little bit. Like you're trying the digestive enzymes, you're trying the bitters. If it's still feeling like not fully digested food and things like that, like we could try optimal PC or, phosphatidylcholine and see, is that the best one for you? Because everyone is going to be a little bit different. And what
Yeah.
they,
I would love to do the gallbladder flush someday, but that really scares me a lot.
yeah.
My mom to do it. She did it a bunch of times,
Yeah.
which might be why, not knowing how much stuff was in her gallbladder, that she got a gallbladder attack because she had, some really huge. She used to, it's hilarious. She would take me to the freezer and take out this foil packet and be like, look, I want to show you what happens when you do a gallbladder flush.
Oh, and
I'm
she
like,
would show you the
things.
stones.
Yeah.
Oh,
A packet of them in her freezer. I'm like, and so then when you said, the flush could make them come out and get stuck,
yeah.
I mean, that I can guarantee you that's for sure what happened.
Yeah. And I think that's really something to think about. Like,
It's scary.
that feels really scary to me too. And
Yeah.
there is no way of knowing,
Yeah.
unless you did do those ultrasounds and they saw them or something, that they were really large. And then I think that would be really more like you would want to go a medical route in that
Yeah.
case, which is why I just feel like it's probably safer just to keep it flowing, TUDCA or ox bile or phosphatidylcholine or something like that, get your minerals balanced, that sort of thing. But I did buy the book to read through it a little bit deeper. I've seen a lot of the trainings from people who've like redone his work, but I haven't actually read the book yet. So I'm going to read that. That's my next book. Completed the Morley Robinson. Now I'm on to that. And then I'm doing the iodine one next after that.
That's a fat book. That's a really fat book you picked up there.
Which one? This the flush?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know if I'm gonna read it. I feel like I'm just kind of like, there's so many other things you can do. Why risk it? But look at these. So
that's exactly what it looked like in her foil packet. Swear to God.
The other thing that can cause these is oxalates, which we can measure oxalates on an organic acid test, which is interesting. And you're about to do that one.
Yeah, mine were high because yours
were high. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting.
If they're still high, if they're still high and the mold is gone, we should look at like high oxalate foods and stuff and see if we can get those down.
I've tried to not, the list of high oxalate foods is like all the things I should be having right now. So I've been eating them still, but trying not to eat them as much, but still.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
hard.
So much.
It is so much stuff. One thing at a time,
Yes.
Otherwise it's just overwhelming. I think you're on the right path. If the digestion stuff is still kind of feeling like off or like you can't have larger meals, like we could just try phosphatidylcholine next and see if that one works for you.
Yeah. Well, and I'm thinking it might still be, I think I'll wait to see when I'm not taking like the Vicon powder, like, I might skip it for a day and just see if that just makes my stomach feel better. But
totally try it even like a few days just to see.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. Good idea. Awesome, my dear. Well, that was great. I'm going to stop the recording.